All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to be tackling surface treatment operators.
Ooh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. This is, we're talking about protecting bridges, pipelines, cars, anything metal, really.
Right, right. Keeping all that rust away.
Exactly. And we're going to be focusing on getting you guys ready for those job interviews. We've got a great career guide to pull from, a really thorough interview guide, and we'll even touch on how RoleCatcher's AI can help give you a leg up.
That AI stuff is pretty amazing these days. Really helps tailor your approach.
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics, just to set the stage. What does a surface treatment operator actually do day to day?
Well, picture yourself, maybe on a construction site or in a manufacturing plant. Could even be a busy workshop, your main job. Applying those protective coatings, chemicals and paints to shield surfaces from corrosion.
So it's more than just slapping on some paint, right?
Oh, way more. It's about precision, safety, and knowing exactly which treatment's best for each material. It got to factor in the environment, too.
So there's a real science behind it.
Absolutely. You're basically a guardian against decay, making sure those structures and products last longer and stay safe.
Makes sense. Now, the career guide paints a pretty vivid picture of the work environment. What can someone actually expect day to day?
Well, think mix of indoor and outdoor work. Lots of industrial settings. You'll be on your feet a lot, moving around, probably handling some heavy equipment.
Sounds pretty physically demanding.
It can be, yeah. And safety is huge EE. You're working with chemicals and specialized tools, so strict protocols are a must.
But on the flip side, the career guide mentions some pretty sweet perks too, like job stability and good earning potential.
Oh yeah, it's a solid career path. Plus, you can specialize, learn new skills, really advance.
That's always a plus. Okay, ready to tackle some of those interview questions.
Let's do it. I bet they'll ask about your experience with surface treatment equipment.
Makes sense. But what if you haven't worked with the exact equipment they list in the job posting?
Honesty is key, but don't undersell yourself either. Focus on any transferable skills you have. Like, if you've used a spray gun before, even in a different context, explain how that experience translates.
And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can come in handy, right?
Mhm.
I've heard their CV builder can actually analyze the job description and help you pinpoint relevant skills from your past roles, even if they're not super obvious.
Exactly. By highlighting those transferable skills and tailoring your resume to match the keywords the employer is looking for, you're much more likely to stand out.
Smart. Now, what about follow-up questions? They'll probably want to dig a little deeper, right?
Oh, absolutely. They might ask something like, tell me about a time you had to troubleshoot a problem with a piece of equipment. They want to see how you think on your feet, handle those technical challenges.
So have a specific example ready.
Yeah, the more detailed and specific, the better. Shows them you've got the experience and the critical thinking skills to match.
Okay, so let's say they ask, can you describe the steps you take to prepare a surface for treatment? Sounds like they're testing your knowledge of the process and your attention to detail.
Exactly. Start by hitting those safety points, proper PPE, ventilation. Then walk them through each step, like cleaning the surface, removing any old coatings or rust, and maybe even applying a primer.
But don't just say clean the surface.
Yeah.
Get specific, right?
Right. Mention the types of cleaning agents you'd use or the specific methods. The key is to show you really know your stuff. And you know what? This is another spot where RoleCatcher's AI can help. They've got this interview practice and feedback tool that lets you rehearse your answers.
So you can practice and get feedback.
Exactly. It's like having a virtual coach giving you personalized tips on how to improve both your delivery and your content.
Nice. Now, I bet the follow-up to that question would be something about ensuring the surface is properly prepped, right?
You got it. Like, how do you ensure a surface is properly cleaned and prepped before you apply that coating? They're looking for those quality control measures.
Okay, so this is your chance to shine. Talk about those specific inspection techniques you use.
Right, like visual checks, adhesion tests, things like that. Shows you're not just going through the motions, you're committed to quality.
Makes sense. Okay, on to the next one. This one seems to be getting into the science a bit. How do you determine the appropriate treatment for a particular surface?
Ah, this is where your knowledge of coatings really comes into play. You need to know the different types, their properties, think about the material you're working with, how it's going to be used, what kind of environment it'll be exposed to.
So, like, You wouldn't use the same coating on a bridge exposed to the elements as you would for something indoors.
Nope. You might talk about epoxy coatings for durability, zinc-rich primers for corrosion resistance, or polyurethane top coats for UV protection. The key is to demonstrate your ability to assess the situation and pick the right solution.
And this is where pre-interview research can really pay off, right?
Right.
RoleCatcher's Career Guide actually gives a great overview of common coating types and their applications.
It's a fantastic resource. And don't forget about their skills gap analysis tool. It can pinpoint areas where you might need to brush up before the interview.
Like a personalized study guide. I love that.
Yeah.
So back to that interview question, what kind of follow-up should we be ready for?
They might ask something like, have you ever had to recommend a different treatment than what was originally specified, and why?
So they want to see if you can think critically and advocate for the best approach, even if it means challenging the norm.
Exactly. Have a story ready about a time you spotted a potential issue with the specified treatment. Maybe it wasn't right for the environment or didn't meet the necessary standards, and how you proposed a better alternative.
Shows initiative, right?
Definitely. It highlights your knowledge, problem-solving skills, and that commitment to doing top-notch work.
Awesome. All right, I think we're on a roll here. Let's keep going with these questions. All right, next question up, all about quality. What is your experience with quality control in a surface treatment setting?
Yeah, they want to know you're not just slapping on coatings, right? They want to see you're all about that top-notch, long-lasting finish.
So how do you actually ensure that? What are some specific things surface treatment operators use for quality control?
Well, it's a multi-layered approach, really. First off, you've got those visual inspections, just checking for, surface defects, making sure the coverage is even, all that good stuff.
Right, the basics.
Exactly. Then there are adhesion tests. So, like using a crosshatch pattern or doing a pull-off test, seeing how well that coating's really sticking.
That makes sense. What about measuring the thickness of the coating? That's going to be important too, right? Making sure it's thick enough to actually protect the surface.
Absolutely. Super important. There are specific tools for that, like magnetic gauges or ultrasonic thickness meters. Knowing how to use those correctly is key.
I bet. And then, of course, keeping good records of all that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Meticulous record keeping is crucial. You got to document everything, all your findings, flag any deviations, make sure any issues are addressed, right away.
So it's not just about doing the work, it's about documenting it properly too.
Absolutely. And you know what else helps? Having experience with industry-specific quality standards, things like ISO standards or NC certifications, those show a real commitment to best practices.
And probably look good to potential employers.
Definitely. It can really give you an edge. And speaking of getting an edge, remember RoleCatcher's AI. It can help with those tricky follow-up questions, too.
Right. They always have those, don't they? What kind of curveball should we be ready for this time?
Well, they might ask you to describe a time when you identified a quality issue and what steps you took to correct it. They're really looking for that problem-solving, proactive approach to quality.
So, another time to have a good story in your back pocket.
Exactly. Have an example ready. Maybe a time when, a batch of coating wasn't mixing properly, or you found a flaw in the surface prep that could have messed up the whole job.
Yeah, like a close call.
Exactly. Walk them through it, how you spotted the problem, how you fixed it, what the outcome was. It shows you're not just following the rules, you're really thinking about quality at every stage.
Love that. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Next question. How do you ensure that you are following all safety protocols when working with hazardous chemicals?
Yes, safety. Huge, huge topic. Can't emphasize this enough. The interviewer is going to want to know that you're taking it seriously, just as seriously as they do.
So it's not enough to just say, I follow the rules.
Right. No way. You got to show a deep understanding of the risks. Show them you're proactive about safety. So first off, emphasize that safety is always your top priority.
Okay, safety first.
Always. Then get into specifics. Don't just mention wearing the right PPE. Talk about the specific PPE. Not just any respirator, the right one for the chemicals you're dealing with. Mention ventilation techniques, how you handle and store stuff safely, emergency plans.
So really paint that picture.
Yeah. And don't just list the protocols, explain why they matter, what could happen if you don't follow them, really drive home the importance.
Right, like don't mix these two chemicals together or boom.
Exactly. Or always wear a respirator when working with this coating because the fumes can cause serious health problems, things like that.
Makes sense. I bet they'd probably throw a scenario-based question in there too to see how you'd handle things on the fly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Something like, what would you do if you saw a coworker not following safety protocols? They want to see how responsible you are if you'll speak up for everyone's well-being.
Ooh, tricky.
It is. But it's a chance to show some leadership. You could say something like, I would calmly but firmly remind them of the correct procedures and, explain why it's so important. If they still didn't listen, I'd let a supervisor know just to make sure everyone's safe.
Right. Got to keep everyone safe. Okay, good answer. Let's move on. Can you describe a time when you had to troubleshoot an issue with surface treatment equipment? I feel like this is one that could trip people up.
Yeah, it's all about those technical problem-solving skills. You got to show them you can handle things when the equipment acts up.
So what kind of story would really wow them?
Well, think of a time when you faced a real challenge, like maybe a spray gun malfunctioned, or a compressor died, or the mixing system went haywire.
Been there.
Right, it happens. Walk them through how you figured out what was wrong, how you used your knowledge of the equipment to troubleshoot it.
And I bet they'd love to hear about how resourceful you were, right? Like, did you check the manuals, search online, call a colleague?
Absolutely. Show them you're proactive, not afraid to ask for help if you need it. And don't forget to mention anything you do to prevent those problems from happening again. Any preventive maintenance you do.
Right. That shows you're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, before we jump to the next question, just wanted to mention again how helpful RoleCatcher's AI can be for practicing these kinds of scenarios.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Their interview practice and feedback tool is great for that. It can analyze what you're saying, give you tips on how to explain things better, be more specific, all that.
It's like having a coach in your pocket. Okay, ready for the next one? Let's hear it. All right, let's dive into this next question. It's about juggling multiple things at once. How do you prioritize tasks when working on multiple projects simultaneously?
The classic juggling act. This one really gets at your time management skills. They want to see that you can handle a busy workload, meet those deadlines, and keep that quality high. No dropping the ball.
It's definitely a skill. I remember when I first started out, I was so overwhelmed.
Oh, I bet. It's a lot to handle, especially in this kind of fast-paced environment.
It really is. So how would you suggest someone tackle this question?
Well, you want to start by explaining your system. How you personally prioritize things. Do you use a to-do list? A fancy app? Maybe you're a color-coded spreadsheet kind of person?
I'm definitely a list person.
Me too. Whatever works, right. The key is to show you've got a system, a structured approach.
Right. And then I guess back it up with examples.
Exactly. So you might say something like, when I've got a bunch of projects going on, first I look at deadlines, what's most urgent. Then I break those big tasks down into smaller chunks, make them more manageable. And of course, I'm always communicating with my team and the clients just to make sure everyone's in the loop.
Yeah, communication is key.
Always is. So yeah, it's all about showing that you're organized, proactive, and you've got a system that works for you.
Makes sense. Okay, so what kind of follow-up question could they throw in here?
They might ask you to describe a specific time when you had to juggle a bunch of deadlines and how you managed it.
So basically tell a story, right?
Exactly, and make it a good one.
Okay, so let's say I was working on 3 projects at once. A bridge restoration, a pipeline coating job, and a rush order for some aerospace parts, all with tight deadlines.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was. So I prioritized based on urgency and impact. Bridge restoration had the closest deadline, and, safety is paramount there, so that came first.
Makes sense.
Then the pipeline job, big team, lots of coordination, had to make sure the coding application was consistent,
Yeah.
and the aerospace parts. Rush order, yeah, but smaller in scope, so I could fit those in between the other 2.
Perfect example. You communicated with everyone, broke those tasks down, stayed organized. That's what they want to hear.
Awesome. Okay, switching gears a bit now. Can you describe your experience with lean manufacturing principles? This one feels a little different.
It does, yeah. But lean manufacturing is becoming more and more important, even in surface treatment.
So it's worth knowing about.
Definitely. It's all about eliminating waste, making processes more efficient, streamlining everything.
Can you give us an example of how that might apply to this kind of work?
Sure. Let's say you're coating a ton of metal parts. With lean principles, you might reorganize your workspace to minimize movement, right? Less wasted time. Or streamline the mixing, the application, to use less material.
So less waste.
Exactly. You might even set up a system to spot and fix defects super fast so you don't have to redo a bunch of work.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. So yeah, if you have any experience with lean manufacturing, definitely mention it. Even if you haven't had formal training, showing that you understand the concept and how it applies is huge.
Great point. Okay, moving on. How do you ensure that you are meeting customer expectations for surface treatment quality? This one's interesting.
Yeah, this one goes beyond just the technical stuff, right? It's about communication, understanding what the customer wants, and then going above and beyond.
Delivering that wow factor.
Exactly. So you want to emphasize that you're all about customer satisfaction. Explain how you communicate with them. Do you keep them updated? Ask for feedback. Do you go the extra mile?
And it never hurts to mention positive feedback you've gotten, right? Those little testimonials.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Shows that you're dedicated to quality and customer service.
Okay, now the follow-up to this one is probably.
Describe a time when you had to deal with a customer who is unhappy with the quality.
Oh yeah, there's always one.
Always. They want to know how you handle those tough situations, those customer complaints. This is where those conflict resolution skills come in handy.
Big time.
So pick a story that shows how you stay calm, listen to the customer, and find a solution.
Like, maybe the coding didn't adhere right? Or there was a delay in the project, and you had to work things out with the client.
Perfect. It shows you can handle those tricky situations. You're not just a tech expert, you're a problem solver.
I like it. Okay, last question. Can you describe a time when you had to train a coworker on surface treatment processes?
Ah, nice. This one's great because it shows leadership and your ability to explain things clearly.
So what makes a good story for this one?
Think back to a time when you mentored someone, maybe a new team member, or trained someone on a new piece of equipment, or helped a colleague figure out a tough process.
I remember when I first started training new hires on spray application techniques. It was hard to break it all down, make sure they got it right, the coating thickness, the coverage.
That's a great example. It shows you're patient and you can explain those technical things in a way that makes sense.
And that's a valuable skill, especially
Yeah.
if you want to move up, into those supervisory roles that the career guide mentioned.
Absolutely. This question lets you show off that leadership potential.
Awesome. Well, I think we've covered a lot today, from the technical side of things all the way to those soft skills that are so important.
We've tackled those tough interview questions, shared tips from the career guide, and even looked at how RoleCatcher's AI can help you prepare.
So to everyone listening, remember, preparation is key. Do your research, practice your answers, use those resources.
And don't forget to let your passion shine through. Show them you're serious about safety and quality and that you're always ready to learn and grow.
With the right mindset and some good preparation, you can absolutely ace that interview and launch an amazing career in this field.
It's a great field to be in. Best of luck to everyone out there.